A very good afternoon from the UK. If you're watching here, the time is just going on for 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon, and on the east coast of the United States, it is going on for 9:30 a.m. It is Wednesday. It is the 25th of September, and this is a live look from Cancun on the northeast coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. You can see here wind and rain and ocean swell moving ashore here, and it is all courtesy of a strengthening tropical storm soon to become Hurricane Helene. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center is this. We have a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm, minimum central pressure now down to 979 millibars, located at 21 point north and 86.2 west, moving in a northwesterly direction at around 9 miles per hour. Looking at the latest IR imagery, we do have a much more impressive presentation, looking at the deep convection blown up here with a center just to the east of Cancun. And you can see the cold cloud tops. In fact, some measurements were estimating cloud tops at minus 90 degrees Celsius. So that is certainly indicative of a strengthening system. Also note on the western and southern flank, we've got these strong gravity waves propelling out from the convective core here, which shows that this system is beginning to become better and better organized here. It's starting to shake off some shear that was present to the north and to the northwest, thanks to a mid and upper level trough. But you can see here, as the sun rises over the system, we've got those cauliflower-like cloud tops now starting to bubble up here, emanating from the troposphere up into the lower stratosphere, and those gravity waves are certainly very impressive, shown on this latest high-res imagery. Looking at the latest from the recon data here, so this is the Hurricane Hunters. Initially, back about 6 to 10 hours ago, the core of strongest winds was in the north and the eastern flank. A lot of the convection was in the eastern side of the system as well. We actually did see the exposure of the low-level center, but it looked as if there was actually multiple centers of low pressure spinning around one kind of main focus of low pressure here. So, aircraft reconnaissance was struggling to pinpoint a defined center, but it looks as if that now the pressure is dropping into the 970s and millibars. Obviously, the Hurricane Hunters are continuing to fly through this system, crisscrossing, taking all sorts of data, and then that is getting sent back to NHC in Miami, where they can input that into the models. But it looks as if we do have conditions becoming more favorable, as I say, and therefore we should start to see the center of circulation become more and more focused with time. Looking at the HAFS A model here for Helene, you can see that as of 15Z on Wednesday, 25th of September, we've got the center of circulation. Notice here that the model has a higher pressure at 986, but the actual pressure is down to 979 millibars. It looks as if the system is already beginning to start the rapid intensification process that has been alluded to for quite some time now, that the conditions would become somewhat optimum, both within the atmosphere. We've got this trough that is digging into the south central United States, and with the pulling away of a trough just to the northwest of the center, we should start to see the combination of that pulling away of the trough to the west of the circulation and the area of low pressure that is becoming a cut-off feature over the southern United States. That creates a large area of divergence in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. So therefore, as Helene enters the southern Gulf, the atmosphere almost becomes highly optimized for rapid intensification. And obviously, we've got SSTs in and around 30, 31 Celsius, which is around 88 degrees Fahrenheit, with that loop current underneath present as well. And it looks as if it's going to kind of ride along that channel of deep, warm waters that will allow the system to become rather intense as it moves towards the northwest of Florida. So looking at the latest of the model here, you can see the system enters the southern Gulf. Then we start to see the convective bands really starting to wrap around the core of the system. We will see the eye developing, and therefore the pressure will continue to fall into the 950s, 940s, and even into the 930s, 920s millibars. The halves A model takes it into the upper portion of the Big Bend of Florida at approximately 929 millibars. So this would likely be a high end Cat 3, Cat 4, and obviously there is still modelling that is suggesting that it could be Persian Category 5 intensity, but obviously we still do not know exactly how strong this is, and I'm trying my very best to not overplay this situation, but I think all parameters are starting to line up in terms of this system becoming a very, very powerful system indeed. So you can see here, this is off the H-Wharf model, and again, system just to the east of Cancun enters the southern Gulf. The conditions become very favorable, and then it moves up through the eastern side of the Gulf of Mexico and making an approach very close to what the halves A model is indicating here. Pressure likely at landfall somewhere in the region of about 942 millibars according to the H-Wharf model. Looking at the ECMWF, this is the 500 millibar geopotential heights and cyclonic vorticity. You can see here that we do have the bowling ball area of low pressure that is moving into the interior south of the United States. Got an area of high pressure to the east of Florida. So therefore it's creating this channel for Helene to ride along. We did have that, like I say, that upper feature. Don't know if Hurricane John, which made a landfall on the west coast of Mexico, is also helping emanate some easterly flow here, or westerly flow, should I actually say, that has been creating this kind of decoupled mid and upper level connection with the low level center. So, like I said, it was vertically tilted. The mid to low and upper levels were not in alignment with each other, and when you get a system that is not vertically aligned, you do not have the structure that will sustain intensification. It is essentially a lopsided system. You don't have the airflow, the updrafts, the downdrafts, all in alignment with each other. But it looks as if the system, according to satellite presentation, you're starting to see the bundling, the tightening of the convective core, with the center beginning to start to kind of position itself underneath the center of that convective blow up here, which indicates that it's starting to become vertically stacked. We're losing the wind shear. We're seeing the gravity waves emanate away at the top end of the system here in the central dense overcast. So therefore, everything is kind of suggesting that this system is becoming better organized within the core. So you can see here, as we continue to play through the loop here, you've got some winds here on the west coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, possibly induced by Hurricane John in the East Pacific here as it came ashore in Mexico. But you notice here, there's that track. So we've got a 591 height lines over the western portion of the Atlantic Basin here, just to the east of Florida. There's that cut-off area of low pressure dropping south along the Gulf Coast. And then this area right here over the central and eastern portion of the Gulf of Mexico is where air is diverging. So this is going to create somewhat of a vacuum effect and essentially create a kind of exhaust for Helene to use in terms of its outflow here. Strong inflow at the surface, strong outflow at the top of the system here. And then there's that channel right here. So we've got the 591 high pressure center over the Western Atlantic Basin. We've got 573 contours over the west portion of Tennessee, Western Kentucky here, and that is the channel that Helene is going to run along here And you can see as we play through the loop here, we've got that donut shape, we've got the convection, thick belt of very powerful winds around an eye wall here. So the system looks as if a lot of agreement in the models indicate that this system is going to go into the upper Big Bend here of Florida. If we skip back the ECMWF, this is 200 millibar and 850 wind shear in knots and low centers. You can see here, if we just skip back to here, you've got a little kink in the wind field here. That is showing that upper level low. We've also got some strong west to northwesterly winds here. That has been the cause of this system becoming lopsided, decoupled, low, mid, and upper levels not in alignment with each other. But as we play through this loop off the ECMWF, you can see that those easterly winds, or westerly winds, should I say, start to pull away to the west here. Then, with the presence of that low over the southern United States, got some very strong winds initially over the northern Gulf, but as the system then moves into the Gulf of Mexico itself, we'll start to see winds blowing more from a southerly direction, so it kind of allows the acceleration of Helene towards the northeastern Gulf Coast as a very powerful hurricane indeed. So you can see here again in this is the relative humidity, 700 to 300 HPA. Now I want to point out a couple of things here. Another factor of the reasons why the system hasn't become strong quickly is the fact that when it was present here way back 24 hours or so ago, this is going back to late Tuesday, as the system was moving towards the Yucatan Channel here between Cuba and Mexico, notice here that we started to see drier air crossing over the Yucatan Peninsula here, and what the models have been seeing is this little entrainment of dry air kind of sucking in to the circulation itself. That has been creating also, so combination of wind shear and also dry air was probably the cause of the system looking rather unorganized here and fighting against the elements here. But once the system leaves the northeast corner of the Yucatan, you notice here that we start to see the dry air becoming displaced from the outer portion of the system, and then becomes much more focused in itself and kind of fuels its own energy, so to speak. So it's wrapping a lot more moisture into the core. Then that moisture is getting emanated away from the center. So it's essentially pushing away that dry tongue and allowing the system to become a rapid deepener. Then we notice here that we do have some fairly strong dry air getting blown out of the southern United States into the western and central Gulf of Mexico. But at this stage, the system is not being affected by that dry air, so it looks as if optimum conditions are favourable for rapid intensification of Helene as we go through the next 12 hours or so. This system will become a hurricane very, very soon, and it's likely to become a very powerful hurricane. It would not surprise me by late today into the early portions of tomorrow. This is already a Category 3, possibly even a Category 4 system. Looking at the current position, and you can see here it is just to the east of Cancun in Mexico. So this system is going to move very, very close to the coastline here, but then move out into the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico here. Looking at the latest global and hurricane models, very, very good agreement here that this system will move to the upper Big Bend region of Florida here, just to the east of Apalachicola, and then make a landfall sometime later on Thursday. Let me see here what else we've got. This is the GFS ensembles. Looking at the next 48 hours, this system will be over south central Georgia, possibly still as a tropical storm, by the way. This will also be a major storm surge threat anywhere from the Florida Keys the lower portions of the peninsula all the way up the western side of Florida, including the Tampa Bay area. This is going to produce a very, very significant storm surge. We will look at some of the finer details in another video. But you can see here a lot of the models now indicate Category 3, Category 4 potential as well. It looks as if actually the majority of model intensity guidance is actually showing a Category 3, Category 2. But this is definitely underdone, I'm afraid, here, folks. It looks as if we have a very high likelihood that this system is going to become a Category 3, if not stronger. So let me see what else I can show you here. Just bear with me a second. This is the latest official track from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, showing that the system, again, there is error of uncertainty with regards to the exact landfall point. This white area, the cone, it could be on the western flank of the cone near Panama City, or it could be further east towards Cedar Key. So this general region here is anywhere where the landfall area could be. So there is still reason to believe that the model guidance could shift back west or east over the next several days. I want to just quickly read some information here, this discussion from the National Hurricane Center, showing that Helene has strengthened some since the last advisory. Reports from the Air Force Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate that the central pressure has fallen to 985 millibars, now 979 millibars, and that the maximum 850 millibar flight level was at 58 knots in the northeastern quadrant. But the boundary layer average sustained winds is closer to 45 knots. Based on these data and increasing satellite intensity in estimates, the initial intensity is increased to 55 knots. Despite the increased intensity, the aircraft data, along with radar data from Mexico and Cuba, show that Helene has not yet formed a well-defined inner core. So yes, there is still strengthening and organization even to come. Once that organization kind of starts to kind of peak, then the structure is well defined. I think that it's going to really draw on that warm fuel within underneath it to then become a very, very powerful system over the next 36 hours or so here. So stay tuned to Mark Vogan Weather here on YouTube. I'm going to try my best to deliver you as accurate of information as possible on soon to become Hurricane Helene, and we will watch this system as it makes an approach on the northeastern Gulf Coast in the next day and a half or so. So stay tuned, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back later on with the European outlook. Hope you can join me then as well. Bye for now.